Zoom can join us too. So we're delighted to be joined by the wonderful Elli Cassidy. Elli is an absolute amazing business person, an amazing photographer. And Elli, you teach people about all aspects of photography. And what I love about you is not just about the art of photography you teach, but you're a great lover of the business of photography. And that makes me feel really, really good.
It has to go hand in hand. You can be a great photographer and have no business, or you can be a mediocre photographer with an amazing business. You've got to kind of balance them out. Just before we get going, Roland, just for you, by the way, I brought my hat.
I love it. Hold on, stay there. I have to screenshot this. There we go. We have to get a screenshot. There we go. Hi, everybody. Yay. I love it. So Elli, just there will be people joining us from all over the world. So, and on the replays, we get so many views. It's unreal. So just tell people where you're from and how you got into photography first.
Okay. I'm originally from Manchester. So those of you who know Man United, that's my home city. But I now live in Lincolnshire, which is East Midlands in England. I live quite near the sea. It's really lovely, rural, quiet place. Very different to where I grew up. So that's where I'm based. And I know, Ronan, because I've seen you chat with all the American friends when you've had your webinars with them, you always bring in the Irish connection. So ask me what my maiden name was.
Go on, what was your maiden name?
Phelan.
Oh, wow, that is an Irish name.
Absolutely.
Do you know which part of Ireland that's from?
No, but I think I can find out. My dad knows. I need to go and do a visit and a tour of Ireland. Yeah, so lots of Irish roots.
Have you been to Ireland?
No, I've travelled the world loads and then not been to Ireland. So it's
really?
on my list.
Yeah, you see, when you come to Ireland, you'll fall in love with it and you will want to go home.
I'm sure.
You will.
So, sorry, I getting into chat mode already. What was your next question? Was how did I get into photography? Okay, so the condensed answer really was that my first son died at 2 weeks old, and I had 2 weeks with him in hospital. And my one of our relatives gave me a camera there. I'd used cameras anyway and liked photography, but I'd never thought about being a photographer. And I took pictures of him every day, mainly in a really positive way to see how he was doing, how he was growing, record his journey. And unfortunately, he did die at 2 weeks old. But those photos for me were like, they validated him and they made him real. It just, because not many of my friends or family met him, I could share those with them. And I've had children since, and we've got those pictures on the wall in the house, and they know all about that they had an older brother. So for me, that was kind of the start of my journey as a newborn photographer. How I then kind of decided to do it as a business was that when I had my next daughter, I wanted to photograph her every day because I'd done the same with my son. And I realized quite quickly, when you've got this little healthy, thriving baby, there's only so much I could do with them before they all started to look the same. So that's when, and she is now 12. So that's when I looked overseas, and in America, our fab friends over there had started to do more of the newborn artwork. And that was a complete revelation to me. Nobody in the UK was really doing it or offering it. So it kind of grew from there. But I'm just always drawn to newborns, not in a morose way, but just because I know how precious and valuable that time is. And also how much you bond with your baby in those first few weeks. Like, I read books to my son and we bathed him and changed his nappies. And I really feel I got to know him and his quirks and his mannerisms. And that's what I want to record for families. It's like a celebration and a validation of this little new life that we've created. So,
Elli, I never knew that about your son. Wow, like what a purpose, you have. I don't know what to say. I'm not normally speechless, Elli, but you've got me speechless, and there's some tears coming to my eyes. But wow, it's what I love is that you had that photography piece, before the very unfortunate passing of your son, but it's given you so much, hasn't it, that you still have all those memories.
Yeah, and it definitely ignited the flame more, because I used to love, I've always liked traveling. Before I was a photographer, I was a teacher. I taught business studies and IT, and hand on heart, the only reason why I went into teaching was because you get 13 weeks paid leave of which I could travel. So I've done a couple of gap years out. I've lived in Africa for a few years. I've traveled a lot of the world. And I got into photography for the travel kind of element, really. I never thought if someone had said to me one day run a portrait studio, I would have laughed, because the thought of photographing people just was so far outside my comfort zone. I never thought I'd go there. But the nice thing with newborns, when I started and just did the babies, was that you don't have to say, stand here, move this way, hold your arm that way. You pose them for them. And then I've learned to love the posing and the coaching and talking side through the maternity and families that I've kind of done since. So it was a bit of a round loop to get where I'm going. And then when I did the photography, I adore it. And I love having my own clients and being my own boss and meeting all the families. But I really missed the teaching. There was still that little bit that, although I didn't go into it for the heartfelt reasons of needing to teach, once I started to teach, I realized I really missed it if I didn't carry it on. So I've kind of split my business sort of 50-50 almost. So I teach lots of photographers and do mentoring, as well as run a studio. And I like keeping my hand in both. I think it keeps your training real when you are also working a real studio as well.
So that's a really good point, because we do see some people who become full-time educators, and there's nothing wrong with that. But do you think that by combining both, it gives you more longevity, that you're sort of up to the changes that you see in your clients and changes in how they interact, even the different marketing generations, right? Because we're moving very quickly now from millennials to Gen Z in terms of who the newborn client in the next number of years is going to be. So do you think that's an important thing?
I don't think it's essential, because you could be worldly wise, but I do think it helps. So I'd never say, I don't know what I'll be doing in the future. And there's no judgment on anyone else that teaches full time. But it helps keep your finger on the pulse. I can see exactly direct. If I want to try something out that I might want to teach my trainees, I can try it with my real clients and engage a feeling and whether it's going to work or not. Even if you look at the products available to us, they're completely different even to 5 years ago. So if I'd stopped running a studio 10 years ago, I wouldn't necessarily have quite the understanding that I feel I have, if that makes sense.
And talk to us about the business, because I didn't know that either. I know so little about you. I don't know, we've never really sat down and had a few drinks together. So this is our first virtual drink and chat like this. But tell us about the business training. What was that in a high school, senior school, secondary school environment?
It was, in the UK, we call it secondary school. So it was 11 to 16-year-olds. And I taught business studies and IT. And I loved doing that. And one of the big things we used to focus on as well was a lot of ethical stuff. So we teach them about fair trade bananas and all that kind of thing to show how we need to treat the world through business to keep it going, because it affects so much of the future of the children that we're going to leave it to. I get bored quite easily. I like to switch things about. So I taught that for quite a while. And then I taught in what we call pupil referral units. So it's the sort of schools for all the excluded, challenging children. So I taught there for about 4 years. And then I went down and I loved that job, but you can only do it for so long. It's really hard work. And then I went and did 3 to 5-year-olds for a little bit. And I was teaching the 3 to 5-year-olds when I then started moving into the photography more. So a bit of a change around, but it's given me a whole bag of skills that work from running my studio.
Very good. So talk to me about the the way you see people learning photography now in university and stuff, and they don't teach the business skills. Do you think that that's something that
I think it's really unfair to the students. It gets me quite angry or frustrated sometimes, because I think the photography skills are really important. But we would have a world full of great photographers not making a living if we don't teach anyone the business. And I think it's very easy to think, when you first get going with a photography, especially if you maybe do weddings or you're on location, the outlay of costs to get going isn't that great. A camera and a laptop and you can start up. But the reality of earning enough in that to pay all your bills and make it a viable living. And one thing I have found when I'm working with a lot of the photographers that I teach is that sometimes when you work out their hourly rate of pay, I'm sure you've done this with your group as well, you realize that they really could, they're earning below minimum wage. And I just think it's a real shame that more isn't being taught. Having said that, I have found a couple of universities and colleges recently that have got business modules within it. So you never know, it might be moving slowly in the right way.
You know, that would make me feel so happy if that's the case, because I just don't understand that. And I understand the art and the art piece, and nearly sometimes I talk to some photographers who say, you know, it's nearly built within us, you know, that the
Yeah.
starving artist piece, you know, but
It doesn't
it's
need to
not,
be.
you don't need to be. Exactly,
I've
exactly.
got a friend who's she runs a hair salon, and she said that at their hairdressing college they did a business module, and they had to learn about profit and loss, and ordering and all that kind of thing. So they're even doing it in hair salons, and yeah, it would make sense to do it in studio.
And I love academia, and I know, but sometimes they don't get that commercial piece, you know, in that part of academia. But hopefully, I hope you're right, and I hope it becomes mainstream everywhere, because it will make the whole industry's life a little bit better, you know, and there'll be more photographic art sold if those business fundamentals are thought. So I love that. But I know you wanted to talk to us especially about, you're passionate about what goes on in the sales viewing room, right? In the viewing room. Can
Yes. Yeah.
can can you, I know you have some nuggets to share with us. So what do you see as the when you're mentoring photographers, what's the key thing you see that they do wrong in the sales viewing room before we talk about what they
Okay.
should be doing?
They start in the sales room. That's where they go wrong. The sale is done way before they go in your sales room, viewing room, whatever you want to call it. I actually think your sale starts before you even know that your client exists. It starts not just in your pre-consultation. The sales of everything starts in the client's awareness of you. So what do they see? What is it online or from friend recommendations and referrals? What's the trigger that makes them want to book with you? And that for me needs to be product based, because products will lead to your higher sales.
Okay, so when you say the awareness, because you're talking about the buyer's process, right? That they first have awareness, and then they build their knowledge, and then they get to the consideration stage, and then they get to actually booking the photographer, and there's a whole lot of steps after that. So talk to me about that awareness stage. Are
Okay,
you saying that when you say it's about the product, how do you go about that as a photographer?
it's really easy and it's missed so often. So often we think, right, we need to show our amazing artwork, and we need to have our art on social media and websites, and however you're marketing, which is true. But everything you put out there, why not just have your artwork displayed on the products and things that you're selling? So when my clients see me on Facebook or on Instagram, every third post probably is a product shot of a framed wall art or a whatever wall art or the folios I sell. So as they're gaining awareness of me, they're not going to go, oh, we're going to go book Ellie because we like her babies. It's more of a, oh, we're going to go book Ellie and we're going to end up with a wall art of our baby. Do you see how I mean? So you drip it into everything that you do. I used Animoto for videos for Christmas promotions when I did like a Christmas setup. And even in my Animoto video, just very quickly, I've dropped in stills of the products, or you can do video shots of the product. So as they're seeing the images and the scene and the environment and the kids laughing, they're also seeing the framed wall art and the folio boxes. So it's just a constant drip feed. So it's in their awareness before they even kind of make contact with you. They've already linked the fact that I am someone they're going to come to get something. They might not know at that point what they want, but you need to let them be aware from the very beginning that you're about the products, not just about the photos. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. So what you're saying to me, I think, is that a lot of photographers on their social media and everything else, they present images that aren't in frames and aren't on a wall and aren't in a folio box and aren't in an album or wherever they sell, and that you need to start there.
Yes. Yeah. Because that way you've done half the battle already. If you wait until they've even booked with you or at a pre-consult to start bringing in the products, you've then got like a big hurdle barrier to break down. If you've had that visual from the very beginning, and everything you talk about in your captions on Instagram, on your text on your website talks about the products that they will get, then that makes them almost as valuable as the finished images they're going to get, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense to me because, you know, we see product placement, don't we? We see Apple computers and the movies, and they pay big money to have it there because they're planting the seed in their clients' brains that this is what they need and this is what they need to buy. And the same way you're doing that with the social media, because you're getting into your clients' brains early before they even come to you, that this is what they're going to end up buying.
Yeah, and I think generally, we're all sheep. We all follow everybody else. So if you can show all your other clients are buying these things, then they'll come to you presuming they're going to buy those things. Because if we don't tell them and don't show them, they don't know, especially if they've never had a professional photo shoot before. They've no idea what the expectation is. So we have to kind of just guide them from the start.
So step one then is stop just showing the images on social media as images. Show them as the finished product on the wall. Or okay, I get it. I love that.
It's a really small thing to do, and it's really easy. And with all the different templates and room templates or products you've got of your own you can photograph, it doesn't have to be a cost factor, just a bit of time to get them prepped and get them out there. But the returns are huge when you start as you want them to kind of go on.
I love that. So lesson number one. So lesson number two, what's next?
Well then, okay, I kind of haven't officially broken it down into stages for today because I thought we'll just kind of go with the flow. But the key really for me is presume the sale. Okay, so all my sales and all the client interaction I have with my clients, I am presuming from the moment they make contact with me that they're going to buy products. And usually what they buy from me is some sort of collection of wall art and a folio box of all their images. Or clients, I call them portraits. I never use the word image because a portrait has got more value, I think. But I very much presume the sale. And therefore, they can choose not to buy certain items or not to buy anything if they wanted to. But by presuming the sale, it's amazing how many clients will just follow you on that because really they kind of want hand-holding. They don't really know usually what it is that they want or where they're going to put them or even what everything is that you offer. So by sort of presuming the sale as you go, and I won't say if you choose a wall art, I'll say when you choose your wall art, you know, do you prefer this finish or this finish? So they still can say no, but actually everything is kind of presumed that they're going to buy, and then it's done by offering choices, and usually it's a this or that, rather than throwing yes and no questions. So a lot of it's the psychology of warming them up into making choices as well. I do that all throughout the client journey. So even small things like before we're in and out of lockdown in England at the moment, we're back in again at the moment. I've been doing pre-consultation phone calls for about the last year or emails, and some of it's client-led because I don't know, it's the catchment of women that I work with mainly. A lot of them very much shy away from the phone. So I'm happy to do it by email as well. But in the gap we had between our two lockdowns, I was actually inviting them into the studio, and it's gone even better when I can get them into the studio to see everything. But it's just every time you see them is an opportunity to pre-sell to them. I don't take the payment up front, but it's all about confirming and consolidating in their minds what's going to happen on this journey that ends with them going away with products that they love. So for example, on the pre-consultation, I've made it's actually, I stole the idea from a friend, Sharon Wallace. I'll give her a name shout because she did say I could use it. And we've created a colour palette for all the newborn props we've got. So I can show the parents and say, you know, have a look at this before your session. You can change your mind on the day, but just see which kind of colour theme you're most drawn to. And then at that point, I will say to them, and I want you to think about your home, which would go best in the house that you've got now? Where on the walls do you think you might put your wall art, and which colours would go with that? And I'll even joke and always say, you know, and equally, if you love a particular colour here that doesn't match your house, don't worry, we can redecorate your house. You know, and it's just, even if they still at that stage haven't necessarily decided exactly what they want, you see them visualise. And if I've got a couple in often, they'll chat in front of me, oh, it could go in the dining room here, it could go above the you know, opposite the safe. They kind of talk through all their places. The moment you can get them to visualize it, the more powerful it is that you then haven't got to just raise that in the viewing room.
So there's been so much in that. My mind is blown. But I think what you first of all said to me is it's mindset, that you have to have the mindset as the photographer that the sale is going to happen.
Yeah.
So do you find in a lot of cases that photographers, they're nearly afraid of the sale, that they have a mindset that it's nearly bad to sell, or I shouldn't be selling, or...
Most of you watching, right? How many of you have felt guilty, or at least when you started, about taking money off your clients? We kind of feel, oh, our artwork's not good enough, or it's a lot of money to spend on a product or a photograph. And it's about kind of valuing your time and everything. I think it helps when you're a product-based photographer, which I hope you all are. But when you are selling products, it's then not just, for me, that really helps, because by selling a product, I'm not just selling my artwork, I'm selling my artwork on this amazing product, and it gives it so much more value that makes it easier to charge, I think. But yeah, I think often people are quite scared of sales and scared of viewing rooms.
So what do you put that down to, that mindset? Is it that they don't believe in their art, or is it that they're afraid to ask for money, or is it that they haven't discovered the difference that their art makes?
I think a big mix of all of them. I think the first one is that photographers, I would say, are more business focused than creative, and I'm really envious of you photographers who've got the most amazing creative brains. I have to work a bit harder at that. But even still, it's very much you compare your work to everybody else's. We judge each other. We are definitely all our own worst critics. So it's always like, oh, I've done this. Is it good enough to charge X amount for? So there's definitely that feeling. And I also think internationally, we've got quite different audiences and quite different experiences. And having talked to quite a lot of my American photographer friends, it's been tradition for a lot longer to have professional portraits. You've got the whole senior movement there, which is struggling massively to take off over here. People have professional photos done for the holiday cards. It's not that rare, to my understanding, to have photos and professional photos there. In England, the history here, or most of the UK, I think, and I'm presuming it's similar in Ireland, has very much been like weddings, christenings, maybe confirmations, birthday parties. But I don't think I ever went to a professional studio. No, I didn't as a child. We never did that. School photos, that's the most professional photo I got, would be a school photo. So I think over here, it's definitely the whole mindset as well of, are people really going to invest this much in wall art? Because it's still a little bit new and a bit alien to lots of kind of society here.
And I understand that, because in Ireland we're similar. So it's about the, you know, definitely, because I've toured the US as well as seen the European, and you see this in Europe too, that there might be a less there may be less cultural things to go and get that done, but do you still not think it comes down to the mindset that this can be done? Because I do see studios in the UK, like yourself and other studios, you know, who do get high sales and are able to make it happen. Do we talk ourselves out of it?
Yes, more often than not, it's the photographer that kills the sale, not the client. Definitely, without a doubt, I think if a client has booked you because they want your products or your service, so why do we shy away from giving them what they've actually gone out of their way to book and have a session with us? I think very much it's sort of a self-projected view. And my tip for that, if you struggle with it, is two things. One, sell products that you absolutely adore, because it's so easy to sell something that you see the value in yourself. And two, imagine in the viewing room that you're not selling your work, you're selling a photographer's work that you really admire. So whoever it is out there that you think their work is amazing and you'd love a shoot with them, pretend you're selling work that they've photographed. And that little kind of acting mindset, again, it can release you from that sort of fear of imposter syndrome, I suppose. So fake it till you make it kind of thing. And it will come, the more you do good sales, the more confidence you get, the more you can assume the sale, and it just sort of self-fulfills then, I think.
And Ellie, the second thing you said was about language and the importance of language and framing the desire in the client. You know, it's nearly framing and leading them to where they need to get to. And it's not that you're being, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not trying to trick anybody here, but you're trying to bring them to show them what you know they actually need.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, when I presume the sale as well, it kind of, I think it helps your client, because together you're working on an end outcome from the very beginning. So yeah, you can chat to them about the different products maybe you offer. You might offer folios and albums, say, and you might want to talk to your client about their preferences. So it's not necessarily set in stone what they're going to walk away with. But by presuming that sale, it just holds their hand along the journey and takes the fear away. You wouldn't go, if you were getting married and you went to a cake maker's, you wouldn't expect the cake person to presume you weren't there to buy a wedding cake. You wouldn't expect them to think you just wanted to look at, it's, people have booked you for a reason. So take heart in that and then deliver what it is that they've booked you for. And I have found that, I had a really bad sales experience from a photographer when had my daughter was 1, and I was just in that mindset of wanting to set my business up. And we won a shoot on a competition in a supermarket and went along to it. It was a big UK chain at the time. And the sales was, the session was lovely. It was simple, but nice. And the sales session, I remember, was very much really pressured, really high. Yeah, I remember there was one image he did it on a big projector, and there's one image I said, I wasn't sure about, and he turned on me and said, how can you not love that? That would be an award-winning image. And he really, it wasn't a particularly pleasant session. And I did love a lot of the images, enjoyed what I bought, spent over budget, but comfortable. I was happy with what I spent. I didn't feel I'd been conned or anything like that. But when I got the pictures on the wall a few weeks later, every time I walked past them, I just got that feeling that I had in the viewing room. All I linked with it was the emotion of how he made me feel. And I have to say, I took them down and they're in the loft, and my daughter can have them when she's older, but I just couldn't get beyond that block of feeling of horribleness. So the other thing that's been vital to me in my sales is just always been to not be a pushy salesperson, to let them enjoy the experience. I even say to my clients things like, I only want you to buy what you love, and I will take away images that we're not sure they want, because they've got to trust me and not feel pressured by me. I want them to come back for baby number 4 and 5, not just baby number 1.
I think that's a key point, isn't it? That it's the lifetime value of a client, and you do want them to come back over and over again. But Elli, you said something really, really important there, but I want to go back a step so I don't forget it.
So
You mentioned about, no, that's fine. But you mentioned about the color. So you have a color guide so that you can pick the props and all that are going to suit the home. I'd never heard that before. Can you talk a little bit to that? Is that something that actually helps the sale?
Yes, because it helps it's going to vary on different photographers and different photographer styles. By having a color palette my clients choose for newborn work really helps, because it then means that it's like just a collection of props that all gathered together. So it doesn't mean I'm going to use exactly the props in the image, but it's to give like a color scheme. So it means if I do work posing on a blanket, and then I do work with parents, and I do some different props, everything is going to match and make a cohesive whole. So one of the things I like to sell is, I always sell clients a folio, and then I like to sell a collection of wall art. And it's much easier when your images gel. There's nothing worse than having a client who wants to buy this big 4-piece wall art, and you can only get 3 images that fit it properly because you've not, as a photographer, delivered and shot for your products. So it helps me to shoot for my products, but it also helps the clients to, it's literally that, the point of me showing the clients really is for them to pre-visualize their rooms. So when they come in for their newborn session, we're already 2/3 of the way that they know they're going to have something on the wall, because that's what we've talked about the whole time. And then in the session, as I'm shooting, I will refer to, this is going to look amazing on your wall, or I don't know how you're going to choose between that one and this one, because this would look incredible on that room we talked about. And it lets you link it all.
So when you're selling for the wall, it's not about one big image, you're selling a collection of images, are you?
I either do one statement image for the wall, or I like to upsell more, because if I only sell one, that kind of limits your, so I don't personally like the multi-frames. I've never sold one frame with lots of images in it, because for me, my opinion is it tends to make the images look a bit small, and I want everything to just be wow. So, but I have got wall collections where I'll have between 2 and 4 different wall pieces sat together. And that's where you can upsell and get bigger profit margins. So, pricing, I can talk pricing to the cows come home. I absolutely love it. But my price guide, in a nutshell, I don't offer very many things, because I'm a great believer in less is more. So I have a folio box, and then I have 2 different types of wall art. And that's all that I offer on my price list. I've got them as separate, but they lead to collections, and the collections, of course, have the wall art and the folio combined, and the best value for money, and they always go for those ones. So it's just a nice funnel.
So on the product piece then, if we go back to the wall art, because I just want to finish on that, because I saw a big trend in high school senior that we talked about a little while ago in the US, where they started, rather than selling one big wall piece, they started to sell by the image, and therefore there would be a collection of, say, 4 separate pieces of wall art, but would be together, you know,
Yeah.
as a set, as a collection that was sold by the photographer. Is that what you're talking about when you're talking about the wall art?
Yeah, but yeah, so there'll be individual portraits, but that sit in a layout that works really well together. But the smallest I sell is 20 inches. So I'm not talking of 10 by 8. So I'm talking of, you know, often it'll include a 40-inch alongside other things.
Yeah. So similar idea. So I really like that idea. So that's where the color palette comes in really important. Is it that they have to connect with each other on the wall?
If you're going to hang them together, it has to look like it was photographed intentionally as a set. So although I'm giving the parents a choice of images to select for it, it needs to gel together. It needs to all work and sit as one piece.
Because that's where it's different than the high school senior. The high school senior that I've seen it done, you know, they may have a sports image and they'll have an image that's more classical and something, maybe if they're a musician as well. So they're not actually doing it together. So I haven't seen that before. So I like that. That's really clever. So, and then you talked about albums and folio boxes and stuff like that. Does that design style have to continue through the images that you'll be putting in?
When I'm photographing newborns, virtually every client will buy a 20 print folio from me. So I shoot for that. I don't currently sell albums. I don't need 30, 40 images. So what I actually try and do is I try and shoot about 23, 24 portraits, because in the viewing room, one of the things I think is really important, I'll come to how I do it in a moment. One thing that's really important is that I encourage the clients not to take everything I've photographed. I want them to pull 1 or 2 out and leave them, because that buys a huge amount of trust that I'm not pressurizing them into everything. I can gift them at the end if I've done a good sale and it's only 3 or 4 images. That's that's your sweetener kind of thing. But I need my clients to have 1 or 2 that they can kind of put in their maybe pile, rather than, because it doesn't, if I say, and sometimes as I'm looking through, I'll go, do you know what, I don't think you love that one, and I'll move it. It just straight away, it takes away that high pressure, and it makes them feel that they can, wow, okay, she's actually talking us out of images. So it's a complete flip, and it really relaxes. You'll see when parents come in for viewings, they're often kind of, right, bring it on, and they're very defensive, and there's lots you can do to, I don't know what the right word for undefend is, for relax someone and to win them over, I suppose.
Yes, and I really love that idea. I love the way you put them at peace because they're expecting the hard sell, because you mentioned, and we won't mention the big brand, but that was sort of what everyone saw, wasn't it? They were going for the once-off big sale, put on much pressure, maximize the sale, and they did make people feel a little bit that they don't want to go back. Like you said, when you saw the images, that it's about, brand is about how someone feels when they connect with your brand. And when you saw those images, you had that feeling, you remember that feeling. So you do the complete opposite. I really love that.
So shall I talk you through what I do in a viewing?
Yes, do.
So in the viewing then, the first thing they'll do is usually they come in, and often, because they've got newborn babies, they might have toddlers as well. It tends to be a rush to get to me, and they tend to walk in stressed. I'm really used to busy parents coming in and being angsty. So we literally relax, sit down, and if it takes 10, 15 minutes to get the atmosphere right before I show any images, I will do that. It's not a problem. But what I will say is my viewings are never longer than an hour. So you can spend all the time relaxing, because you've done the sales already. This is just choosing the images they want to have for the products they've got in mind they want, because we've done all that first part of the journey. So it's actually not that long and deliberating usually. It's kind of just a guided pick out the favorites. But when they're all sat down, the first thing that I'll do is I'll say to them, I won't say, would you like a drink? I always avoid the yes, no questions, and I go for what I call my warm-up questions. So it will be, would you prefer a tea or a coffee? And I'll wait and see what they say. So yes, they can still say no, but it's much easier. If someone says prefer tea or coffee, you tend to get, that they'll pick an either or. Whereas when I often would say in the past, would you like a hot drink? You'd often get a stiff, no, thank you, because they don't want to be in debt to you because they're about to get stung in the wallet kind of thing. At that point, I will then go, oh, fantastic. Is it still milk with 2 sugars? And are you still white with 1? Because what I do in my either pre-consult, if they come in, or in their photo shoot session, is I've got light blue studio management. And when they leave and I'm backing up my files, I write down a session debrief. And this came probably from when I was teaching, because when I was teaching, you used to have to do a session debrief with a little notes bit to fill in. But I've even got the guys at Light Blue have made me drop boxes for drink selection. So I don't have to type it. I literally have got drop boxes with everything of how they have their tea and coffee. I don't know if it's the same in America with tea or not, but we like our tea over here. So I have that there. And then I've got a big notes bit where I will write down anything funny that happened in the session, make sure I've got all the family members' names in there. If they've got siblings, if there's anything in particular that child was into or clicks with. So just literally, it's only 2 minutes. It really doesn't take long. And I do it as I'm copying over my files. But it means then I can look back at it the minute before they walk in the door at the viewing, and I know how they have the tea and the coffee. And I haven't got the headspace to remember it. But when you've got a parent sat there who's tired and stressed and probably hasn't slept because they've got a newborn, and someone's remembered that they have a white coffee with 1 sugar, you literally see them go, oh, they feel important and valued and remembered.
And you're keeping them out of the habit of saying no, right? That's a key thing you
really
said there.
So it's all about decisions. And then it's, would you prefer cake or biscuits? You might put them both on the table, but would you prefer this or that? Because when it comes to the sales session, usually what I then do is, once we're all relaxed and chilled, I will put on a slideshow to music. Because I think if you want to sell large wall art, you have to get your client to see it big. So I've got a 60-inch plasma in the viewing room. Some of you have projectors. Doesn't matter, I don't think this is what you use. But if you want to sell large wall art, you need to be able to try and show them large wall art, because then it's not such a big mental shift. But I do say to them, I don't want you to, we're not picking and choosing. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy this, because I've got something for you after. So they go through the slideshow. Sometimes we'll play it twice. I have tissues on the table, and I always say if they cry, they buy. So we'll often joke about whether it's mum or dad that's going to cry first. But we all go through that together. And then what I do, lots of you have heard of like the printed reveals and reveal walls. Well, my spin on it, which I've done for a long time now, and it works really well, is I then come over and give them, place in their hands, a fully edited, fully printed, fine art printed folio. And say, there's your portraits, you can have a look through them. And they'll know about that if they've been to me before, but if they haven't, they don't know. And just this look of, and when it's a product and they've got their baby on it, printed, ready, it's so powerful. And every time they stroke the box, you can't just hold it. They stroke the box, they admire the portrait, and then we lift the lid off and they can go through. And nothing beats seeing the images in print. It's great to do the slideshow for the portraits, because I do use that to sell them the wall art, but actually going through this folio box with all the pre-printed fine art prints, it's just so powerful. Then what we do is
Hold on. There's so much in what you've just said that we need to deep dive a little bit further, okay? Yeah. Because can we just go back to the sequence first? Yeah. So the wall art, do you sell the wall art before you present the folio box of images?
No, I'm going to come to this. Oh. So I don't sell anything. We just do the slideshow to get the really big wow, because I think the slideshow gives you the bigger wow factor in a way, seeing it big and the music and the emotions. And then I go straight into giving them no sales talk yet. We go straight into having the folio box. Okay. And then what I do is I'll say, right, what I want you to do is look through your portraits and maybe just put them in 2 piles. Do me a love and a like. Okay. So there is no pile, no maybe, no negative words, just a love and a like. And at that point, usually what happens is the love pile is big and the like pile is really small. And as they're going through, if they're hesitating and they can't decide, I'll go to them, well, nope, you don't love it, put it in that pile. Because again, I need them to buy into it all and the trust and reject a couple. Then what I do is I will lean over and I'll take that like pile away from them, and I just put it on the corner of, I've got a big coffee table, and I put it on the corner, and you see them go, because they've realized that they're actually making some decisions here. And I'm not knocking the reveal wall. I think that is really powerful too. But for me, the difference in my preference is that on a reveal wall, and I've experienced it as the customer from a reveal wall, it's quite easy to go, oh, I love that one and that one and that one. And yes, you can pick them up and hold them, but they're still picking the ones they want to add into their folio box. Okay. This way, my clients are having to choose, they've got them all, then they have to choose which to give up. And it's a tiny difference, but it is a massive, massive, massive difference. I can't stress how big a difference it is.
And you're right, it is a massive difference, because I think we call this the secret box reveal in 3XM, but it's the principle of, you know, when you have it and you hold it and you're holding you, that you don't want to give you or your family or your baby back, right?
Yeah. So putting the product, we always talk about, if you want someone to buy something, you need to put the product in their hands. You go to a posh watch shop or jewelry shop or shoot, whatever your thing is, they'll get you to hold it. You know, you'll smell it, feel it, stroke it, hold it. And it's just the same with these products. The other big advantage is that we were talking a bit about different generations of children and what category they fall into, but we're much more of a buy it now culture. So if my clients know that they've got this folio and it's amazing and it's awesome and it's printed and they can take it home now, it's really hard for them to leave that behind. Really hard. And I often get asked by people, what about the cost of it if they don't buy every image?
Just to ask you that question, I was just coming there.
So my point there is the mounts and the folios are reusable if you went to sell it. The cost of fine art prints is negligible when you're talking about a decent sale. So for me, it's worth that investment in printing the images out to ensure that you get the sale. And I don't think I've ever had anybody not buy at least a folio. They might not have gone for the 20. I do offer it in a 10 as well. I offer it in a 5, but I don't remember ever selling a 5. But if I had 10 prints left they didn't buy, well, one, I still had such a big profit margin, it doesn't matter. It's just the cost of doing business. And 2, you could actually sell them at a later date to them. You could file them if you wanted to. Sometimes they come back if they've made more money when they've gone off maternity leave. There's all sorts of options. But really, I just think it's worth that little bit of investment to get the bigger sale. So it's just a cost of business, really.
So Ellie, what do you ever get asked? What happens to images I don't buy by the client?
Yeah, and that's where I can't bring myself to say I delete them all or I bin them all, because that's literally what I got told at my bad sales guy. So I just say, do you know what? I'll just keep them. And if in the next couple of months you've come into some more money or you've worked away, if any relatives want to buy them, tell them the ways they can get them. Then I'll have them here safe for you. But they always buy on the day because they want to take them home. They want to share them. And because they've come prepared to buy. I'm not starting this process and surprising them with them thinking they were just going to get digitals and suddenly throw a box at them. The plan has always been for them to take my folio and some wall art. So the surprise element is just that they weren't expecting it ready yet. So it's just an advantage. It's ready sooner. It's not come out of the blue. I think you have to prep your clients into wanting to buy it before you can bring it in.
So when do you introduce price? Do you discuss price with them as they go through the folio box, or do you transition about what they love to bring onto the wall, or how do you go through that?
On my website and stuff is all my starting figures. So I haven't got a full price list there, but it's starting points at. And we talk a bit more at the pre-consultation. And honestly, it depends on the client whether I give them a price list on the day or not. If they don't ask, I don't give them one, but I'm not shy about talking about how much things are on the wall as we walk around. And, you know, I can say, this is a 40-inch, which is perfect for over the mantelpiece, and it starts at X amount. As long as you have the confidence to say it, that's okay. And make sure they have a price list when in their hands with them when they leave the newborn photo shoot. So they go home, they can read it. Oh yeah, they'll get sticker shock at some of it, but that's also okay because that's what we want them to do. Better than in the sales room. But I've never lied or hidden my prices. I've just not given them all the different options for everything. But in the viewing room, I tend to find that actually price doesn't come into it so much. Usually they've got an idea of the collection that they're going to go for. So they often come in and they'll often even say to me, we want to go for this collection, which is usually one of the middle ones. The negotiation might come in when they decide to, often I can upsell in the viewing room. So usually I'm not selling them cold. We're just going from this level to maybe this level if there's a few more images that they really love they didn't know that they'd love, if that helps. So once we've chosen the folio amount, usually there's 20 left, or like near as anything to 20. They maybe have pulled one or two out in the like pile. So they usually know they're going to go for the folio of 20. And then I'll say, right, what was your favorite image or favorite images? And then I go back to using my large TV again, and we'll pull them up. So if I've got a 60-inch screen, it's roughly a 40-inch equivalent of a 40-inch print that you'll get on that. So then it's just, how's that for size? And then you can go up or you can go down depending on what they say to that. And then once if they say, oh, that's pretty good for size, I'll say, brilliant. Okay, do you prefer, and the products I offer, I said I like to do choices. So my folio choice is 10 or 20. My wall art choice is framed or frameless. So I've gone for a traditional frame, and then I've gone for an aluminium metal print. So that's my frameless. So it's just literally either or. So they make their choice. So no point do I say to them, would you like a wall art? Goes right back to what I said at the beginning. You just presume the sale. So how's that for size? Or we can go smaller or bigger. And then which finish do you prefer? Do you prefer the framed or the frameless? And then I can say, okay, fantastic. I'll tell you what, if we're looking at a 20-inch folio and you're looking at a 40-inch wall art, the best way of doing it is we're going to save you the most money. And it's actually our most popular is if you go for this collection here. It just leads them into it. And that's the only point really that kind of you bring the money bit back in. So again, I'm not hiding money, but it's just not necessarily relevant when you've done the prep work.
And what I love about that is that, the language pattern is really, really important that you use in it. And, yes, you are leading them a direction, but you're only leading them where they want to go. And there's no decision fatigue, right? You're not giving, well, you can have that one or 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 that one in terms of wall art pieces. Yeah. Can I ask you something on the price of the wall art? So whether it's framed or non-framed or frame, did you use the word frameless?
Yeah, I don't know what to call them, so I call it frameless, right?
Okay.
What I decided to do was, I think this will answer your question, was I have priced them the same by the measurement. Because what I really didn't want, right, and I debated for a while because it affects your profit margin, but not when you're sensible. So what I didn't want was someone to absolutely love, say, the aluminum metal prints. I can never say the word aluminum metal prints that I offer. But only be able to afford the frame, which sometimes is cheaper. Actually, ironically, with the two products I offer, one is cheaper than the other until a certain size, and then it flips. So it kind of balances out a bit, luckily. But I just decided to let the client choose what they want for what they want without throwing in another money decision. So it's just this finish or that finish. As long as you do your profit margins for your lower one of the two, or the more expensive product of the two, you're always going to meet your margins. So if I sell the cheaper product, I just think extra cash for me, win-win. And that's made my sales session much smoother as well, having less choices again.
And you're keeping the client out of that logical price mentality, and you're keeping them the emotion of which they prefer, right? So
when I first started years ago, I offered every product going. Like I had 4 different albums and box for it. The list was huge. So I definitely learned over time to whittle it down, and now it's like bare bones. And the other thing that I will touch on that I do as well is I follow the model of I give them the digital backup for any product they purchase.
Okay, I was just about to ask, and what about the digitals, Ellie? Yeah, what happens with the digitals? So if I buy it in photographic art, you give me what do you mean by a backup? Is that a social media file or?
No. I give the high res file, but rather than calling it digitals, if you use the word in all my website and everything, I talk about the digital backup files. It's the same thing, but a backup is a backup to what? It's the backup to the product. So straight away, again, I am putting the product as the product. You happen to get this with it. I don't want them to think that the digital has got any value whatsoever. By calling it a backup product as well, I think it takes away a little bit the mindset of, oh, we can just get the digitals and go and print elsewhere. Sure, they can get reprints done elsewhere, but I've labelled it as a backup, and it's more, I just thought the generation that we're in, I think I personally would find it hard to book a photographer that I couldn't get the digitals for. I know I want them, whether it's logical or not, I want them. How do I know that photographer's going to be around in 30 years when my house burns down? So I gift it, You haven't seen my cooking, it's atrocious.
I feel that I've met my twin on this stuff, because we talk a lot about the mentality of the backup. Exactly what you've just said. I've never used that language. I think that is so clever, right? But the idea that, yeah, in today's generation, they want to know that they have a backup for that stuff, that because I talk to photographers, say, of my generation and older, right, and they just don't get this requirement for a backup. Like they say, well, we've been in business for 30 years, we're going to be in business again. But what do you put that down to? Is it just a different nuance of the generation, or what do you put that down to?
I think it changed when we switched from film to digital, because years ago you'd have your negative as a backup, wouldn't you? You'd have a kind of a hard copy, but photography became accessible to the masses when we stopped doing film, and therefore everyone's got used to having the hard copy. So I think that's kind of where we've got this need and desire for it, because every picture they take on their mobile phones or their cell phones, they've got the copy of. So it's kind of ingrained in us that we want that and we want to share it. Now, you could just give out social media sized images, but we all know they're going to print them anyway. We've all seen the examples on Facebook where someone's got a big canvas made with copy, or do not print through the middle. So just give them the high res, but you charge enough so that you don't mind those digital files going out. That's the key. You've got to make sure that you've got your happy price point for every product that you sell, because the odds are they're not going to come back and get a second copy from you. I mean, they sometimes do, but I presume when they leave the sales room, that's going to be my last financial interaction for that particular shoot with them.
So talk to me then about, if we go back to the framed product.
Yeah.
Is there multi types of frames? Have you a whole load of different frame corners that they pick the color? Or?
Right. Cannot stand frame corners. I think that the corners are the laziest thing a photographer can own, right? Get rid of them. Do not have chevrons. That's the word, isn't it? Don't have them on your wall, for goodness sake, whatever you do. If you have to pull it out a drawer, fine. But when I go in the studio and I see chevrons on the wall, my heart just sinks. That is not showing a client a finished product. It's not classy. It's not luxury or high end. It's just lazy. So I offer one frame mold in 3 colors. And I've got samples of all of those on my studio walls for them to see. You can always do extras and different if a client's got something different in mind or wants something to match, but then that's when you go above and beyond with your service and they feel it's more of a tailored thing for them. But on the walls of the studio, one frame mold in 3 colors, that's it.
So again, no decision fatigue, really simple to pick.
Really,
this one, or this one, that's it.
Honestly, Ronan, I've been debating getting them all and leaving it to 1 color frame. I'm just not quite brave enough yet, but I really kind of I'm on the fence with it. I've just noticed as well, I've just seen the chat box has popped up. I don't know if you've opened that or not, but someone said, do I use Pro Select? And no, I use Fundy. Very similar though, but it's Fundy that I do my room mock-ups with in it.
So do you get your clients then to send you pictures of their home where they might put the wall art?
So I ask them to do that in the pre-consultation. I'd say only about 30% of clients do. Most don't bother. But the fact that you even ask them, again, with that colour palette I give them as well, it makes them picture where they're going to have them at home. So even if they don't get around to doing the task, I think most of them think about it. And actually, I will use their wall image and do mock-ups on it in Fundy or whatever design software you've got. But sometimes I find it looks better on the bought templates or the templates that are included with them. It can look a bit smart, more showroomy. So I like to do the mixture. And in the slideshow PowerPoint presentation that I play them, I do have the different room setup options and the different layouts. I've just some of my favourite ones to get the ideas flowing and give them some ideas. And you'd be amazed at how many times they go, do you know what, we absolutely love that. We'll just switch that one image out for that. And can we take that?
Excellent. So let's have a look at the questions. So, hi Ellie, great talk. Just wondering, if you only show 24 to 25 images, do they look for the extra images from the session?
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by look for the extra. I don't shoot heavily. So I will probably take 60 frames in a newborn session to get my 23. So, you know, you've got your misfocus and your blinkies, but I'd say my shooting style is more shoot with purpose. I know what images I need to get to be able to sell them this full session. So I'll only shoot for that. But again, they're the kind of things you can talk about in all your pre-build-up. So, you know, I usually show you around 20 images because we've got the lovely folios that you can then have. So you just build it into your sales talk. So you kind of address that one before it becomes an issue. But again, less is more. I used to show 40 images and it took forever to get it down to a folio of 20. So actually showing 22, 23 is just the right amount for me.
And I love that because, you know, it's about quality, not quantity, right?
Yeah. If I had a dodgy session, I'd rather show 12 than pad it with fillers. I think I'd rather stand there and say, I've got 12 wow shots for you, because they've been there. If you've got a really unsettled baby, they were in the room and they know. So I'd still rather not ever dilute the quality of your work, just give them the best that you've got. Because I can still sell them a folio and a massive piece of wall art. You only need one or two great pieces.
Another question we have, Ellie, is what size folio are you shooting for? So is there an overall 11-14, 8x10, or another size?
I started on the 11-14s and decided that for me, in my opinion, they just felt too big for the genre that I was shooting. With a baby, there was just something about going from a small baby to holding the small folio that has the baby's images on it. It connected better. I think when the folio was bigger than the baby and heavier, just didn't feel right. So, but what I did do was I dropped it from the 11-14 to the 8-inch one, 10x8, but I didn't drop my prices down. I just dropped the folio size. Nobody commented, nobody questioned it, so I just got more profit margin. So yeah.
So tell me this, did you find that when you went to the smaller size that you sold more wall art? Did the 11-14 ever actually get in the way of the wall art sale, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's not something I've consciously thought about, but the moment you've said it, yes. The 10x8, I do 8x6-inch aperture matte prints. So that, yeah, it lends itself nicely to having the small thing to go alongside the large wall piece. I'd have to look back and properly my figures and see, but I do know that at the moment it gels really nicely. They've got the small presentation products and the large wall display, and it just goes hand in hand.
Ellie, you're an inspiration. So much information there. And before we go, I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier. So you said about in your collections that one of two middle prices. I think you were going to allude to that. So, because you said most people end up in the middle in one or two,
yeah,
one of the two.
I mean, you know, I told you earlier that I tried loads of different jobs and I get bored easily. I do get bored easy and I like to mix things up and just test things, I suppose. And what I always think people need to remember with a price list is it's not set in stone. Obviously, when you show one client, you need to honour that right through, but there is no harm in trying to adjust things, tweak things, change it, try it for 6 months. If it doesn't work, go back. If it works, it's a bonus. So don't be scared by changing prices or increasing them. You can do it and test it as you go. So one thing that I've just done recently is I've added in a 4th collection because I found I had 3, because I'm very much a keep it simple, you know, but I found I was selling my top products, my top collection quite frequently. So I thought I'm just going to put another one on the top. So my old top one has become one of the middle ones.
Okay.
But I'm in early days on knowing how that goes. But I'm hoping that might push some more to the bigger one.
I think that will work really, really well because in sales, there's a thing called price anchoring. is a bigger package that you don't intend selling even, you know, that
was the original plan there with my top one. And then when people did sell it, I thought I'd better. So like in my viewing room, I've got, when you walk in, one of the first things they see is I've got a 60-inch wall art on the wall, which is silly expensive, but that gets the, you know, that anchors everything else. And I could talk, listen, do another one with me sometime if you want on price lists and orders and all that. I love it. The other thing I want to add on as well, if I'm allowed before we go, is
of course
you need to your sale doesn't end in the viewing room when they've paid you, right? This is the other thing people do wrong so often, is it's subconscious but brilliant, got your money, thank you very much, off you go, goodbye, right? That's not it. So you have to follow up with them. You have to make the unwrapping. If you're delivering anything afterwards, or they're coming back for a collection, I do for their wall art, they go away with their folio, but I wrap it and present it, and it's all beautifully done, that they then take away with them. And when they come back for their wall art, if they do it, I've got a big easel and a spotlight, and it's just lovely. So and then I will wrap it in front of them. But they walk in and it's on the stand and it looks amazing, and it's keeping that wow factor. And it's following up, you know, 5 days later or 3 days later with a, is everything okay, blah, blah. And then you can ask for your, you know, your testimonials and stuff. But it's, don't stop when they pay you. Because I do think that experience I had years back with the horrible salesman, had they followed it up with, you know, you're happy with your products, and it might have softened it all a bit, or just left a sweeter taste. And also, I think it's really important to end your sales meeting, your viewing, whatever you want to call it, back on the friend's foot. So when we've done the financial transaction, I will then, when it's not COVID times, I'll have a big cuddle with their child. You know, we might have another cup of tea or coffee. I don't want them ever to feel like, oh, she's taken the money and we're off now. Spend a few minutes at least bringing it back to the friendship zone, because I have clients who'll come 2 or 3 times a year. Some of them who've been coming for like 8 years now. It's definitely easy to keep a client and make a new one. So don't accidentally cut them off there.
Peter asks, would you follow up with a low or no sale? So someone doesn't buy from you, would you follow up afterwards?
Because I think the way I position myself, being very product based, I've not had a no sale and yet. And I think that is because it's all about education, and so many times they can go, actually, you're out of our price point or out of our price bracket. It's not like you're taking a random booking from someone you've had no interaction with, who then isn't quite sure that they want it. It's a much more conscious decision to book a shoot with me.
So your no sales know well in advance of they even coming into the studio for the session that they're a no sale, that you're not right for them and they're not right for you.
Yeah.
You've that
and it might well happen one day, but I think really, because you're doing the in-person sales session, I wouldn't follow it up after unless they'd said, we're having money difficulties because something unexpected came up, could we? Because usually you can seal the sale in the sales room, and it doesn't need to be hard selling in any way. But I think if you've got no sales or low sales and they're happening more than once in a blue moon, you've got some problem with your system, your processes. Something isn't right for that to be something that comes up. But I do think, I mean, there might be the odd time where in the future I get someone in who's like, something's happened and they can't afford anything. But then you've also got different payment plan options, or there's all sorts of things you can do with a client. One thing that I like doing is I like to try and counter all the objections you can get. And it's almost a game I'll play with myself, a bit like chess, when I've not got a real client. So one thing that I started to do about 1.5 years ago, I've only had to offer it twice, but it's worked each time, was I've gone from always selling the folio on one wall art to now trying to get them to a higher collection, which has got multiple wall arts. And one objection I got a few times was, well, we won't go for that one yet because we don't know if we've finished having babies. We might have another one. And they often want to wait for a large family portrait on the wall for when they've completed their family. So my solution to that is that I will now say to them, well, I'll tell you what, we'll do the wall art now for the family. And if you have another baby and you bring them back, I'll replace that one complimentary for you. Okay? Because if your profit margins are big enough, the cost of the product shouldn't be huge compared to that client coming back and replacing that one wall art. But they're never going to, if they bought a large image of baby on their own and a large family portrait, when they come back, they're not going to just buy a large family portrait, they're going to have to buy the baby on their own. Otherwise, that sibling, when they're older, will say, well, you didn't love me as much. So you then upsell at the second session. So I've done that twice this year to clients who haven't yet come back to claim their next family shoot if they have another sibling. But it's swayed them towards, okay, yeah, that's another pressure gone, we'll go for that. So sometimes it's just being a bit creative in how you can help that client get what they need at that point in time. Sorry, long answer.
You are full of so many great ideas. Seriously, I could talk to you all night, but unfortunately we're gone over. But before we finish, Elli, if people want to make contact with you, how do they do that? How do they find you?
My website is just ellicassidy.co.uk. I am awkward. There is no E at the end. It is ELLI Cassidy. But I know that Ronan's tagged me in this. And my Facebook and Instagram are just Elli Cassidy Portraits. So any of those channels.
So it's, just to make sure I've got this right, so it's ellicassidy.co.uk, yeah?
Yeah.
So ELLICASSIDI.co.uk.
IDY.
IDY? Yeah. IDY, yeah. .co.uk. That's what I have. Okay, excellent. Elli, thank you so much. So many great ideas in there. And, you know, one of the key points that you made, which I see so many photographers not doing, is, as you said, that follow-up after. There's 3 more stages in the client buying process after they've parted with their money and invested in what you've produced. You know, they've got to be satisfied, and you make sure that they are satisfied and you follow up with them. And then you get loyalty, and then you get advocacy, where they become raving fans. So you have it all sussed, my friend. You have it all sussed.
So my summary takeaway for everybody watching is just presume the sale and do all your sales from presuming they're going to buy.
All about mindset too. I love it, Elli. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me very much.
Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope we get you back here again, because I know there's more there. You've so much to talk about, and even just this hour, like there's so many nuggets, So thank you so much, Elli, for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you all, Think Tankers, for joining us. Tell everybody who haven't seen this one to watch this one. This is one of the special ones. Stay safe, stay healthy, everybody. Take care. Bye for now.